Gentlemen, we are back for some more F1 23 gameplay, and this time we are at Brazil to do a 100% race on the controller. I haven't used the controller since F1 2020, so it's been a long time, but we're going to be jumping onto the controller, see how good it is compared to the wheel. We're going to be driving as Oscar Piastri as well for this race. And would you look at that, look at the weather. We're going to have on and off rain for these 71 laps around Brazil. I have no idea what to do with the strategy, so we're going to start off with mediums, and I'm just going to play the hand that we're given because we don't know what the weather is going to do. We're going to be starting the formation lap very shortly, and it's a lot easier to get in the temperature window on this year's game in comparison to last year's game, especially on the harder compounds. We are on the mediums, and Brazil is only a short circuit. Despite that, I still found it pretty easy to get in the temperature window before starting the race, so no stress about that on this year's game in particular. And each set of tires has their own different temperature window as well, not all the same across all tires. We accidentally failed parking on the grid, but it is 5 red lights, and away we go for 71 laps around this awesome track as we get squeezed almost into the wall, but it is a good start for us against the AI, and that is a common theme on this game so far. As we get a little bit squeezed to the inside from Alonso, we shouldn't have gone for that move, really. No space available there, so we're going to try and hack our way through turn 2 and turn 3 here. We get ahead of De Vries, and Tsunoda is up next. Quite a good start, making our way up from the back of the grid into 16th place as we now head down the straight into turn 4, which is a decent overtaking opportunity as we're proving as we get past Tsunoda there, and the two teammates of the AlphaTauris are going side by side, but that is no longer our problem as we have Alonso up next yet again as we almost crashed into him at turn 1, but we are going up the inside. Looks like we're going to get the move done. He'll have the inside for the left-hander here, but we are going to run a little bit wide, still make the move work, and we got Magnussen up next. It seems that from early impressions, the controller is a lot more easier to use in comparison to previous years gone by. It's a lot more responsive when traveling at higher speed. You'll know if you've used the controller in previous years, there's kind of like a dead zone or delay, especially at high speeds, where you just won't get any steering input. But now you can adjust that with the steering rate, and even on the default setting, it's a lot more responsive than it was in last year's game. We're now wrapping up lap 1. We've still got a long journey ahead of us and a lot of cars in front of us, so let's crack on with it. Alonso's looking to make a move on us, and he's on the soft tires, so I'm not sure if I'll try to fight this too hard. I think it's best we pull in behind him, try to use the slipstream and the tow the benefit of DRS gives us, and we'll see how far he can take us up the order. Obviously, the Aston Martin is a lot stronger than last year's car, so it's a bit of a surprise to see Alonso so far down the order, but obviously it's a preview version of the game. It's not the final developed product that you guys will receive on release day, but we are following along still here with Alonso, and you will have noticed the sky has gotten a lot darker, and we have a yellow flag, and that is, I think it's De Vries that's actually spun around here. And he's ran wide and just got on the gas way too early, and he's almost taken out his teammate there. It's a bold strategy from AlphaTauri. Let's see if it pays off for them. And we have a safety car on top of that. And while it is starting to spit rain, I'm going to come into the pits because by the time the safety car comes into the pits, it is most likely going to be a wet track. So we're going to take the gamble, make a pit stop early, and hopefully this gives us a free pit stop against the AI. Or if the AI are smart enough to come in, at least that way we'll try and jump up the field because they're definitely not coming in this lap. And very shortly we're going to be experiencing what it's like to drive in the wet weather on F1 23 and see if it's going to be easier than last year's game like it is in the dry, or if it's going to be just as hard or harder than last year's game. At the moment, I am definitely experiencing a loss of grip, and we've popped out, it looks like, in 14th place behind Hulkenberg. I don't think everyone has made their pit stop yet, and on lap 12, while still under the safety car, we have in fact jumped up to 5th place. So that's a lot of positions gained. Let's see if we can retain this position for as long as possible. And we now have the safety car pulling into the pits, and we're going to get going again, but it's not a green light yet until we reach the start finish line. And we almost overtook Hulkenberg way too early, so we had to pull back, and then we went up the inside. Got the move done around the outside of turn 2, and looks like we're going to keep 4th place for now, but he's going to be hot on the heels going into turn 4 here, and he's making the move up the inside. We're going to try and hold it all the way around the outside, and we hang on just. And yeah, that is correct, Mark. The conditions are getting worse as we make a mistake going through what is considered the final corner of Brazil that involves a braking zone, and Hulkenberg just manages to squeak past, as we now have Russell in a definitely stronger car than the McLaren at this point in time. Tsunoda also looking for a way through, but we've got the inside line, so he's not going to be able to make that stick. I asked Mark to see if the wets were any better at this point in time, but he still thinks the intermediates are the best. We've got Magnussen now attacking us into turn 1. We're going to go side by side with him. And while this is happening, I will say it is a lot harder to drive in the wet on F1 23. It's a lot closer to F1 22 versus what it's like to drive in the dry between the two games. And we've got Verstappen, who's also got the fastest lap of the race, right behind us. And there's absolutely no chance that we're going to keep a Red Bull behind us in this McLaren. So we're going to let him sail on by, try and keep up with him. Absolutely no chance of that happening though, because he's driving an absolute rocket ship and he's won, I think, every race in every video that I've made so far in this game. Moving on though, the rain has gotten worse enough for the AI to start pitting on lap 18 for the full wets. And I'm going to go for something different. I'm going to go for an alternate strategy. Try and stay on the intermediates for the simple fact that in the pre-race forecast, it did show a dry spell before the end of the race. And I'm going to hope that comes sooner rather than later. Not only that, but we've jumped everyone now and we are leading the race. We have completed our first racing lap in the lead on F1 23. Let's try and keep it for as long as possible. But in saying that, I've made a mistake going into turn 1 as the conditions are becoming undrivable at this point, and Leclerc being on the wets, we have absolutely no chance of keeping him behind, so we're going to let him by without losing as much time as possible. I'm not going to move off of the racing line, and he just squeezes by into turn 4 there, and Hamilton will be right up next, and I've gone a little bit wide yet again into sector 2 here. And he's just going to move on by, as during this part of the race we're going to be hemorrhaging a lot of time. But what is important is trying to hold as much position as possible, as we make a massive mistake going into turn 1. We lock the rear axle as braking has become a lot more difficult in this year's game, and Bottas gets by us. We're hoping that if we do lose positions, we only drop down to 7th place. If we stay higher than 7th place before the next pit stop, then that is in fact a net gain, and that is what we're looking for. So it's okay to be slower than the AI at this point in time, but let's try and stay with them as much as possible, even though we're going to be slower. And we've got 3 cars battling it out here. We've got Russell, Verstappen, and Hulkenberg just in front of them. Russell stays ahead of Verstappen, and well, we're losing grip like we are losing position. Sainz is going to have a go at us next, and that's going to drop us from 7th down to 8th, and now we've made a loss. So this strategy probably hasn't worked out well for us. Also, it is key to note that Sainz is driving a faster car than us, so it's well possible that he could have overtaken us even if we were on the same strategy. Tsunoda now looking to make his way by while he's on the better tire. Obviously not much I could have done about it, but I think we are racing him, and it would be ideal if we can battle him to the end of the race and try and get that position back off him when perhaps we have an opportunity later on. Obviously nothing we can do against Perez, and at this point in time we are just getting bullied. We are absolutely getting destroyed by the AI, and clearly this strategy has not worked out for us. I'm really hoping there's a safety car or some weather change later on, or else we are in big trouble for this race. Clearly I'm not as fast as I am on the steering wheel, but we are still running on 105 AI on the controller, and I haven't driven on the controller with any practice, so I think we're putting up a decent fight here. And would you look at that, we've made our way all the way back up to 4th, now 3rd place, just by skipping that extra pit stop. So maybe it's not as bad as I thought, as Bottas, now on way fresher tires than us, manages to get by. And at this point in time, we're obviously going to be slower than the AI yet again because we are on older tires, but it won't be as bad as it was when we're in full wet conditions, as we are able to put up a fight against George Russell here. Not really worth burning extra battery to fight the inevitable here, especially when Hulkenberg and Verstappen is right behind us, and if we have no battery, then we've got no chance of defending against those guys as well. The weather is definitely drying up, so maybe it's worth trying to stick with these guys as much as possible, because if something swings our way in terms of an opportunity, such as a safety car or another weather change, then we can definitely pounce on that. But Verstappen, he's just got the performance there, just driving better than me, so he's going to get past us. And Sainz likewise gets past us through the final overtaking opportunity really on the circuit, as we now head into turn 1. And Tsunoda, our main target for the rest of this race, who I want to beat, is now getting past us. He's got the fresher tires, but what I'm hoping for now is the track dries out very shortly so that we can get onto a new set of tires as soon as possible. And our teammate has also gotten past as we take the Verstappen racing line through turn 4, which is not ideal. Alex Albon out of the race. I think it's just an engine failure as he just pulls off to the side here towards the escape road. Maybe this could give us a safety car. That would be really great for our race as we almost lose the car. I was playing with the bias throughout the entire race, and as soon as I shifted the bias towards the rear by any percentage really, I would just lose the car on the rear axle and I'd almost spin around. So yeah, definitely running a higher brake bias for this year's game is worthwhile if you want to stay on the road. Because Norris did get in front of us, we have a slightly slower pit stop because of the double stacking. Unfortunate that that wasn't really updated in this game, because they can do double stacks without such an issue in real life, as long as you have a bit of a gap. And after that pit stop, we're going to pop out just behind Sargent, who's in P12 now, doing an alright job in the Williams, but we're going to be looking to take that position off him as soon as possible, because we're not going to tolerate a Williams staying in front of us for very long. As we lock up the inside left and we almost go into Sargent. He actually had the awareness to kind of move out of the way there to prevent so much of a collision. We did make a little bit of contact, but the AI definitely having a lot more awareness. They're a lot more passive, I think. If they were a bit more aggressive, might be more realistic, but in terms of just having an AI that's not so annoying, it's a lot more enjoyable to race against if you don't want to have incidents where you get damage on the car. Sargent now making the move up the inside yet again. We're having a decent battle here. Lap 44. We've still got a lot of laps to go, and I think this might be holding us back a bit from catching Gasly, although Gasly does have a slightly faster car than us. And Sargent just kind of moves out of the way after a slight amount of contact. Bit of an overreaction, if you ask me, as we now have a yellow flag in Sector 3. Not entirely sure what this one is for, but I think it was a car in the battle pack just behind us might have had an issue or a spin. As Sargent, looking to make the move, keeps on following us around like a bad smell. And Mark just said on the team radio that they are expecting rain within the next 10 minutes. So it looks like we're going to be moving on to the intermediates again before the end of this race, as we go down the inside of Sargent yet again, as we're just having this constant battle, it looks like, for what seems to be the rest of this race. As we now have dropped Sargent a bit. I think he might have made a mistake as Stroll got by. And we now have some people making a pit stop, including Gasly, who was ahead of us. They're going onto the mediums. I'm going to try and stay out until the wet weather comes, as Gasly now on the fresh mediums is making his way back past us. But if the rain comes shortly, we have gained essentially a pit stop from where we should be against the people that we are racing against. Tsunoda's popping out as well, and if the rain comes soon, we could be looking at a points finish this race if we can get ahead of Tsunoda, as we go side by side, banging wheels with Gasly. We need to stay within a second of Tsunoda to get that DRS, but unfortunately we couldn't, and Gasly just goes sailing by as we had no battery. But on lap 56, the rain is starting to come down now. Gasly has built a 7-second gap, but with this weather change and several laps remaining, who knows what can happen. We're going to come into the pits, lap 56 here, as we come sliding sideways to activate the pit limiter, and we get it under control as the AI takes control over the car for the pit stop. Purple turn in, looking good, and another decent stop from McLaren there. So what I'm thinking is, if there's going to be heavy rain towards the end of the race, there's a good chance that the AI might switch to the full wets at the end of the race. And if we can stay on the intermediates until the end of the race, we have a good chance of getting points if Gasly and Tsunoda decide to pit for those wets. We are actually gaining though on Tsunoda as we drop the gap down to under 3 seconds, but unfortunately because we got caught by Leclerc. It activated blue flags, and we were bringing the gap down to Tsunoda again, but Hamilton caught up to us as well, and we had to let Hamilton go through here. We're trying to lose as little time as possible as we have the rear end step out on us again. Very treacherous in these conditions, especially with the more difficult braking of this year's game in comparison to last year's game. We caught all the way back up to Tsunoda for the last lap of the race for us, because we did get lapped by the leading cars, but it's just not going to be enough to catch Tsunoda. If we had one more lap, maybe we could have made the move, but we had the speed to catch Tsunoda. Unfortunately, not enough time, and it looks like Leclerc is going to win the race as we come home to complete 70 out of the 71 laps, and we do in fact get driver of the day as we started from last and almost made it to the points. Controller feels good on this game, easier to save the car from slides, but that is going to wrap it up for the Brazilian Grand Prix. I hope you guys all enjoyed, and I'll see you all in a brand new one.